the day the first light got turned on, okay, it was a turn on for me also. I was like, oh my god. Biggest difference between Hollywood and Bollywood when we talk about it is basically the song and dance and the hyperactive melodrama. When I first started working,
Right.
I realized people had a problem with my stature. They didn't take me seriously because I was short and lanky. You know
Thank
how I
you.
look like. Yes.
I hope we got this shot of us shaking hands on the point of being short.
I realized that a lot of technicians are not used to having a female HOD on floor.
We are used to working in an environment where the female command somehow it takes a lot of time to adjust.
It is called the male mentality. You are telling them to bring up your next generation. That is a female's job, but a camera is not. I'm like, how? I can use any shit camera in the world, but I'll give you the same quality visuals each time. My brain is better than a sensor. So if you have spent 2 rupees on the project, I have to give it back to you looking like it's 10 rupees. Being in Cannes and seeing all that madness, because more than the word, I just love being there. I am one of the best out there, whether you like it or not. I don't care, but I am.
And God said, let there be light. So, in this world full of shadows, we have with us on today's episode a person who paints pictures with lights. We have with us the brilliant cinematographer, Miss Modhura Palit, on today's episode of NMN PODS. And it's going to be a fantastic conversation because she is a person I love working with. She's a person whose work I personally admire. And she's going to take us today through stories of her own journey. And especially, she's going to raise a very important question here, is that is strength and creativity synonymous? How she started off her journey as a female cinematographer in an industry where primarily creativity and strength and male counterparts are equated on the same level. It's not a very complicated conversation, but it's a very fun conversation. Join us right now. So you have been working in independent films, in commercially successful films for a very long time. People have always demarcated both of these as, two different schools of cinema. Do you think, having worked in both the mediums, do you think that commercially successful films, the need to deliver to a particular target audience, demands a particular type of visual storytelling, which sometimes compromises with your maybe instincts, maybe some sort of improvisation, some sort of experimentations in order to deliver a particular visual storytelling or a particular visual narrative?
It's not necessarily that. What we have to understand basically that when we're talking about something like an art house film or a commercial film, because the TG is different, the socio-political audience that we are targeting to, the understanding of what a cinematic language is kind of differs. There is a way of telling a story differently. So it not necessarily means a constraint. It is like you're talking in Hebrew in one and Latin in the other. You're just using different languages to communicate a same story. So when anybody, take any director in the history of cinema, when they have done something which is purely out of their heart, when they have decided that, I don't care if only 5 people understood the film, they have shot it in a very different way. And when they've decided, though, I want at least 100 people to understand what I'm trying to put across, they have shot it in a different way. It is just a different language that you're using to tell the same story and the same narrative. It is not constraining, but yes, when you're doing a commercially viable film, when you have a stake of giving back a money to a producer, there are obviously some things that you're liable to. When you do as a technician, when you have so much of economy of the project riding over your back, you have to give back something to the producer. And for that, you need to use certain stereotypes, certain notions, certain cliches that are popularistic, that are in a popular language, because it works, because somehow the audience loves it. They react to the shot or the way of that dynamic of a story much brighter way, I suppose. So you use that, and it is your notion to maybe affect. So a hero entry, be it a Hollywood film or a Bollywood film or a Tollywood film, any film whatsoever, it's always kind of similar. It has to be larger than
Larger than life,
life. They,
absolutely.
they walk in through this sunlight filtering through. There has to be a backlight. There has to be a certain amount of dust blowing. So, however cliche that it's like, it's like chocolate. People love it. And you have to give it to them. So it is not something constraining. It is just a different language of film.
Right.
And when you're doing something in art house, which is purely for just telling a story in the director's purest understanding of cinema or story per se, you have that not baggage of telling a story without using these cliches. Like the hero there can enter in an auto and nobody really cares, so it doesn't really matter. So I think it is not about looking at something or degrading a certain visual quality or anime whatsoever. It is just for me two very different languages.
Right.
And each has to be there to complement the other.
Right.
If there is only commercial cinema, then you won't understand what an art house film is. And if there is only art house film, then you won't understand what commercial film is. So both has to kind of coexist. And only then they become complementary to each other. And so you have to cater to every audience, no? So whoever likes what it is.
So, like you were speaking about Bollywood and Hollywood, and how there are some sort of visual narratives that have been sort of passed down, generation wise, from the maker's point of view to the audience point of view. If I consider that Bollywood is much more, it's sort of strict on what the visual is supposed to be, on what it is supposed to deliver. Some people say that compared to Bollywood, maybe Hollywood offers a much more independent, open space to other collaborators, suppose the cinematographers, to work freely. If that's the case, do you believe that working in West Bengal, working in the Bengali film industry, Bengali cinema offers a completely different plate altogether if you keep Bollywood and Hollywood as two poles? Because we always compare with these poles on two sides. So do you think the Bengali plate of things is very different from these two, or is it a mixture of the two?
I think it is about sensibilities and understanding. The biggest difference between Hollywood and Bollywood when we talk about it is basically the song and dance and the hyperactive melodrama. And it is because in culture of Indian narratives, language, literature, music, song, dance has always been there, right? It is just a part of the narrative since forever. From Ved to our Patochitra, music is a way of telling a story in the
Absolutely.
Indian subcontext of narratives, which doesn't exist in the European language of the narrative of sorts.
Absolutely.
So that is where it kind of differentiates. But then again, if you look at the musicals that Hollywood come out, there is a difference. It is the same thing. So when Gene Kelly is dancing, it is out and out colors and people are dancing and it's random, the prop changes. It's a Broadway musical that happens.
Right.
So then the demarcation changes. And from there, when you're looking at something like Bengali cinema, the sensibilities are again very different here. We are much more calmer sort of people who like to talk. We celebrate poetry more than necessary. We have a certain way of telling a story, which is again cliched, but we're comfortable in it. And we keep on telling the story in the same way whatsoever. We don't like too much of hangama happening around us. We are very, if somebody is talking too loud, we're like, my God, the person is so loud. We keep on doing that. We as people are very snobbish actually. Bengalis are pseudo-intellectuals. So I think because of that, the narrative also is kind of a mixture. It's like, I'm not going to be that, but I'm not going to be this either. So, I'm going to put a song and dance, but nobody's going to lip sync. So it's going to be a montage where the song plays in the backdrop. And so I'm going to have a narrative where two people are sipping wine in their posh South Kolkata house and not talk too much. So it is just how the sensibilities are.
Right.
I just feel that it is very cross cultural and cross linguistic difference. So now if you again look at Marathi films, it is very different because they bring a lot from their dramas and their theaters. So it has a lot of that in that. You go to Punjab, it's a very different narrative. You go to Northeast films, it is different, it is bizarre in certain ways, because they're talking about situations or stories that we don't have any idea about.
Right.
So the more you move around now from region to region, it changes.
Mhm.
Iranian films, for that matter, it's a very different texture of storytelling. So I think it is more to do with the linguistics and the sensibilities of that space and how people react to it.
So, for the members of the audience, Modhura is known to be very unabashed and very uncompromising when it comes to her work. And since I have had the opportunity to work with you, I have seen this is not just because you're in front, but I have also mentioned it personally to you quite a few times, is that the dedication and the amount of energy she puts into her work is absolutely unparalleled. And maybe that is why tons of people my age really look up to you, or they obviously ask me the process of how you work or how you started your journey. And whenever such questions come, I cannot help but also look at a very important aspect of it, is that this industry, uh, whether we like it or not, is mostly in the sector of the technicians or the crew members. Most jobs are done by male or men. Whenever it comes to very this is basically one product of the Indian society, to be very honest, and I'm sure you have faced this question numerous times. Most jobs which require quote unquote strength are passed on to male counterparts. um, what was the first kick in your life that one made you think that I'm going to be creatively a visual storyteller? Two was that I'm going to not care about these people, whatever they say about how strength equals creativity.
I come from a family of image makers. My parents are art photographers, both of them. Both of them are award winning. So I've always had this thing of image making thing at home. So
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't really a point. Like, I have always looked at the world very visually. I
All
used
right,
to
all right.
also paint. That's like foreground memory right now, but whatever. I
But
used
did you
to.
have one point of like one breakaway point or one moment where you
Yes, I
decided?
had this. I know I have this exact aha moment.
Right.
I was in college in Xavier's, so we had to have used to have this small studio where I
Hmm.
used to do this light practices and everything. Very basic, like two baby lights and one kino and all of that, and we used to work with that. Okay, and we had this professor called AD. And one day the first few weeks went in just identifying which light is what. कि
Right.
इसको baby
Right.
कहते हैं, इसको kino कहते हैं, इसको 1K कहते हैं, ये सब चला. फिर the day the first light got turned on, okay, and it was a turn on for me also. I'm like, oh my god, this is nice.
This is nice.
And we started lighting up, and then I realized, dude, I can play God, I am so powerful
Oh,
right now.
yes.
I can create day. I can create night. I can create a windy morning. I can create a stormy night. The world is mine. And I love the feeling of liberation. I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do. I want to walk into my job every day and I want to feel like a goddess walking in.
Lovely.
And that is what I believed in. Coming to a second point, I don't care what people think, because I knew that there is nobody in the world to help me. I don't have a godfather. I don't have anybody to guide me or anything. But I have always known that if I've decided to do something, I will do it. And I
Hmm.
don't give a flying F of what you think about it. Because, and that is why people think I'm very snobby. People think I am very rude, which I am. I love to be rude. It is one of the happiest moments that I have to be rude, But I really don't care. And I've always followed that. That, if you're hiring me, I'm the Glenfiddich, bro. You can, though
Right.
this thing, it's a, I'm Glenfiddich. You have to, you're a Davidoff. You're just taking me and you have to believe in that because I believe in that.
Right.
And I've always stood my ground that, I have done my best. I know my shit. I know my job. I know how to light up a space. I know how to create imagery. And I'm trying to evolve also myself. It is a continuous growth that I try to do it. And I want people to believe that. And I am sure people believe that. Hopefully they do. But yes, it is just simple as that. I am one of the best out there. Whether you like it or not, I don't care, but I am.
So, what was your approach from day one? Like the day you walked in as an independent cinematographer, do you always plan to, kind of put your foot down to keep the wheel moving? Was that something you had in mind all the time?
I was a class monitor all my life. Okay, so I've always had this thing that don't mess with me. And also, when I first started working,
Right.
I realized people had a problem with my stature. They didn't take me seriously because I was short and lanky. You know
Thank
how I
you.
look like. Yes.
I hope we got this shot of us shaking hands on the point of being short.
Yes. So because I was short and I was lanky and I used to wear this jhal t-shirt as we call it, and I used to walk into the set.
Right.
So people never used to take me seriously. Okay, they thought like a lot of times when I was starting out, people thought I was the costume AD, or I was the script supervisor,
Right.
or I was the runner. Okay, and a lot of time I have to like after a point like, hello, I'm the DOP,
Right.
camera requisition, not the prop requisition. I don't care where your frames are coming from. I
Right.
want to know where my lights are coming from. So all of that started happening. And then also when I started working, I realized that a lot of technicians are not used to having a female HOD on floor.
Exactly.
It was very new for them. They were trying to be respectful, but they didn't really take me seriously. And like one of the, I remember very vividly, this is a lovely story. I love this person also. There's a trolley setting Dada we have called Mantuda. You must be knowing Mantuda. He's very senior. Whatever. So Mantuda is very nice actually chap. Okay. So I was shooting something and we were pre-lighting. So and it was a Indo-British collaboration. So the director was British. He was called Felix. So he had come down and we were pre-lighting this in the set and everything. And I suddenly see Mantuda, doing a lot of wiring work for tubes I really didn't need or bulbs I really didn't need. And I went up to him and I was like, दादा नहीं चाहिए इतना, नहीं लगेगा, छोड़ दो, हो गया, जितना लग गया, 2-3 आप एक्स्ट्रा रख दो, हो जाएगा. And Madhura looks up to me and he says, नहीं, कल DOP आगे बोलेगा कि 4 लाइट मुझे एक्स्ट्रा चाहिए, तो मैं आपका बात सुन के नहीं करूंगा, तो झाड़ के आप मुझे बचाने आओगे. And I looked at him and my assistant, who was my direct assistant, he knew. He looked at Manthur and I said, don't say anything. Don't say anything. Let's just leave it at this. I was like, nahi, theek hai, aap karo. And I left, okay. So next day morning, I come into the set and by that time, somebody must have told Mantuda ke, wrong door. So I still remember it is so vivid for me. I opened my car door and Mantuda was like, Didi, coffee. Sorry, Didi. Amar bhul hoye gache. I won't do this again. Kabhi nahi hoga, ye wo. And I laughed my ass out, okay? But then I realized the problem here or with anywhere whatsoever,
Right.
it is like we always say you have to bell the cat on the first night. You have to do that.
Exactly.
You have to walk into the set and you have to assert the fact that you're my team, but I'm your boss.
Right.
And you have to also give them a clarity of what the hell is happening. Because there's so much of things happening. You're trying to manage people, you're trying to manage resources, you're trying to manage the money, you're trying to manage the electrical fuses and everything. There's so much of aspects of cinematography per se. You have to be very clear-headed and strong-tongued.
Right.
To have that whole... So I worked with 80 bulky men, if you have seen, but if somebody sees, it's a very weird visual thing of this small little girl running between 80 bulky, sweaty men, and I am like screaming at the top of my lungs. So to handle that whole warrior clan that I have, I have to go, because I cannot go stature wise. I have to do this by my brain and by my notion that, I know what I'm doing.
Absolutely.
And you better believe in what I'm doing too. Because if you do what I'm doing, life is going to be sorts. So it is just a team building thing.
Absolutely.
It is just about how you not let yourself be taken for granted on set also.
Absolutely. That was precisely my question, because we are used to working in an environment where the female command somehow it takes a lot of time to adjust, even though I don't know why, it just takes some time. It's very weird.
It's called the male mentality.
Yeah, it could be. Absolutely. Also, we have one more thing, which I'm sure you have faced tons of times along with this gender politics, is that slightly experienced people going like, wait, मैंने तो बहुत शेडो के साथ काम किया है, तुम कब आई? मैंने तो काम किया है, उनके साथ जब काम किया था उनको तो इतना लाइट नहीं लगता था, तुमको ज्यादा लग रहा है. So this experience game also comes in, right?
Yeah, it used to happen a lot. I was like, हाँ दादा 1947 में वो लाइट होना बंद हो गया है. अभी तो ये 2000 समथिंग है, तो अभी आप अपडेटेड हो और मेरा बात सुनो, ठीक है? You just stop doing that because you have to. You have, even if you don't like to do it, but
This is part of your job.
It is part of my job. You know, you just have to handling people is a huge part of being a cinematographer.
Right.
You know, just from the grip to the light boys to even the art sets, you have to. I don't think the art director handles art setting so much as a cinematographer does, because you're like continuously वो light को हटा, वो prop को इधर लेके आओ, वो frame को लेके जाओ, and all of that you are continuously doing. You have to do that. And also there is this notion of the strength that you were talking about, that, you know, female people can't be doing strong work and all of that. But I'm not a coolie. I'm not supposed to be a coolie. When lifting weights I'm not a weightlifter. I'm not a coolie.
Exactly.
With all due respect to all the coolies in the world, that is their job profile. Their job profile dictates them to pick up heavy stuff. My job doesn't ask me to.
Right.
So me picking up a 14-kilo camera is not part of my job profile actually. It is a technique. I know how to pick it up, irrespective of how weight it is. You know, a lot of people bulkier than me can't pick it up because they don't know how to pick it up. I know. So that cannot be a notion of whether my sensibilities as a cinematographer is great or not. And also I've always believed that, you know, you can accept women walking kilometers in the sun in desert and coming with water, like liters and liters of water, walking kilometers. You can take that. That is fine. That is a woman's job. They can, you know, build construction houses. They can carry bricks. That is a woman's job. They can cut firewood. That is a woman's job. You are telling them to bring up your next generation. You're asking them to bring up your next human being who's going to take world forward. That is a female's job, but a camera is not. I'm like, how?
Fantastic. So coming to a very different question right now is, you are talking about visual narratives, and you have worked with tons of directors, independent directors, up-and-coming directors, critically acclaimed directors, and commercially successful directors. Each film, how do you differentiate the visual narrative? I'm asking the cinematographer Modhura Palit, and if you could answer me from your creative perspective, other than the director's perspective or what the script demands, what is that visual point or decision in your head where you decide that no, this film's look is going to be this?
So for me, I listen to the script very seriously, and I try to imagine it. Okay. And I hook myself onto there. I've always believed that there should be that one visual that should come to me when I'm hearing a script.
Okay.
And that is just one visual. It can be anywhere in the story, anywhere. It can be the first shot, last shot, whichever shot it is. But it has to come to me. The moment that visual comes in my head, I know what my film is. I can kind of start creating then from the bricks and the story and how the mood is. And obviously when you talk to the director, everyone, as you have told, each of them are different personalities, different personas with a different understanding of how world is, how film is, what is their outlook towards life, how they look at relationships and life per se. Their visual context changes. So that comes into play again. But for me, it is I believe in gut instincts. I don't take up a script if I don't feel it. I have to feel it. I need to feel the need to shoot this. And I need to feel that one image that will come to me on which I build up my whole visual journey.
Okay, all right.
And there is also a thing that I personally, I have this philosophy, which might be wrong or whatever, but this is my personal philosophy, that, you know, two actually. There is one is that cinematographer's job is not only to tell the story as the director wants you to tell it. You're supposed to transcend it.
Right.
You're a craftsman. You're a technician, right? You know how to make a structure out of clay. We basically paint with light, right? That is what we're supposed to do. We are painting a blank canvas on a 2D censored with light. We are actually painters and craftsmen. So my artistry has to work there. I need to add something onto the script or onto the visual narrative or the visual dialectics that the director is trying to build on, and I have to transcend it. It is my job to to obviously tell your story the way you want it to be told, but to help you take it a step beyond and
Right.
have a subtext to it.
Right.
One. Second is, I have a firm belief that even though all this is true, the cinematographer has only two shots in a film or a narrative. Any narrative. The cinematographer has only two shots, which is his or her own. The first shot and the last shot
Of the film
of the narrative,
of the
whichever,
narrative, right.
of the film,
Of the
short film,
series,
web
yeah.
series, whatever. It's the first and the last.
shot. Okay.
Because when the audience is starting to watch a film, they don't have a baggage of a narrative coming onto them.
No.
You're introducing them to a world, to a milieu,
Correct.
to a geography, to a persona, to an
Yes.
idea, to a mood, to a feeling. You're introducing them to, you're this phantasmagoria. You're opening up the curtains and you're saying, welcome audience, this is the magic you're supposed to see tonight. So the audience still has no baggage of a narrative coming to them. The moment you've given the first shot, the narrative has already begun.
Exactly.
So from the next shot, it is not your shot anymore. It is a director's shot, it is a scriptwriter's shot. You are gone into the narrative. The same thing is the last shot. You don't have any baggage of continuing the story forward.
Right.
Your narrative has ended. Because the moment the first shot has started, ended, and the last shot is beginning, between that, you're following a narrative, a scripted literature.
Right.
That you have to follow, no matter how much of artistry you want to do. But you cannot deviate out from it. So me as a technician, actually, I don't have anything to say to it. But the first and the last shots are mine. Rest is the narrative story.
That's fantastic. That's actually an analysis I've never heard of before. And now coming to working in the Bengali film industry, although you have worked with various other collaborators, but there's this constant pressure of delivering very good looking visuals in a shorter amount of time, in crowded spaces, on roads, on real locations. What are the challenges that you have faced? We know you have faced tons of challenges, but amongst these challenges, what are the challenges that have pushed you to a further limit? And what was that one film or series, or maybe it could be one shot, it could be one scene, that pushed your limit to a whole new level?
I don't know, yeah, everything feels that I've pushed myself to the limit each time because it's like so difficult each time. It's almost like I'm throwing up blood every time. Every time I finish a shoot like this, I'm like, I'm never going to do this again. This is my last time I was doing something like this. And then I'm back to the rigmarole. I'm doing the same thing in 12 days, but whatever. But the point is that the challenges are many. But what I've realized that one has to be very clear on paper before you're hitting the floor.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
Once you're on floor, you're just plug and playing. You don't have time for discussion and everything. There is this story I have to tell in this context. So I was just having this discussion very randomly in Berlin. So in Berlin, I was talking to this French filmmaker, and he's this very nice guy, very calm and quiet, and how French people typically are. They're very romantic and soft and cute, and he was very cute too. So I kind of indulged him. And then he was talking about filmmaking and this and that, and how he thought about a story in like 2 years, and he decided to shoot it. And his whole journey of the whole process, I realized, took him around 4.5 years to get there. And then he was like, so then how many films have you shot? And I was like, my IMDb says 44. And he was like, what? I'm like, yes, my IMDb says 44 and I have 11 features and multiple things. He's like, how do you do it? I said, I just go and I start shooting. And he was like, no, so how does it happen? What happens when you're having this discussion with your director and you kind of not think that he wants the same thing, you want the same thing, and you're having these differences? What do you do? I said, what do you do? Well, we sit in the corner, have some coffee, smoke a cigarette, and say, I put my point of view across, he puts his point of view across, and then we talk, and then we decide. What do you do? I said, take both the shots. We don't have time for discussion. Discussion next film.
Also, we don't have coffee often on the set.
We don't have coffee. We will have the typical lalcha.
Yeah.
So there is no point. I said that all this discussion happens in the next film. So this film, you have a problem, I have a problem. We take both the shops and move on with our lives. So that is how it is. You don't have time for discussions and all of that. So all of that you have to do: thinking, planning, light design, mood design, this deck banano and all of that, which is a huge deal right now, which makes no sense because we are using pictures from 1917. The light will get here. So anyways, we just kind of use references from Nolan's film and Roger Dickens' work and all of that. And then I shoot with one 5K, one like a solar or whatever, panja. And it gives the same effect. So that is the fun of it. That you bring out a reference of a project which has been shot, that maybe that one shot has been taken in 20 days and you have to do this in like half an hour.
Right.
But the feeling has to be same. The look and feel has to be same because you've already pitched it and you cannot go back on it. So, but it is fun also in a way, because your brain is then always working on a hyperdrive.
Exactly.
Because you need, and for that, you need to be very strong with your ABCs in the technicalities. You really need to know that how does this happen. So you have to miniaturize the whole thing, and you already have to know that I don't have anything. I don't have anything in my life right now. So how do I still make this work? And then you bring out actually all of your understanding and learning and all the prowess that you have as a technician, and you throttle it out. And I've always faced that it is not necessarily be in the Bangla film industry, when I've worked in these indie projects, which are also very lesser amount in economics and the commercials, then it is a lot more difficult because that are going to go to direct international film festivals where you're going to compete with filmmakers coming from all over the world, and you still have to make it work. And you're shooting with an A7S or maybe a mobile phone. You are using even things that are not supposed to be used. So the idea is always to give you an output. So if you have spent 2 rupees on the project, I have to give it back to you looking like it's 10 rupees. And that is my job. How I do that is also my notion. And also that is why I also believe that as technicians, we can never be relying on the machine. What camera I use, that shouldn't dictate how good my visuals are.
Right.
I can use any shit camera in the world, but I'll give you the same quality visuals each time you make me do that. And that is my prowess. That is why I'm a technician. That is why I'm a human being. My brain is better than a sensor.
Right. So, talking about cinematographers who have influenced our vision so much in Bengali films as well, and in national films, international films, I would definitely like to speak about Mr. Sudeep Chatterjee, Mr. Obik Mukhopadhyay, how they have completely worked. They have completely changed visual narratives overall in the in national film industry as well as in Bengal. Do you have plans of working outside Bengal film industry in the national zone, in the commercially viable national zone of India?
Yeah, why not? Like, I'm just waiting for a call. I would love to work with Sriram Raghavan. I would love to. This is what I really want to do. I want to work with Vishal Bharadwaj. I want to do that. But anyways, I don't care. See, cinema as a language, we always talk about, but actually it is true. It is a language of your mind. It is a language of visual poetry.
Right.
So like my own diploma film was a Marathi film.
Okay.
I understood nothing of it when the filming was happening because my whole team was also a team of Marathi people. So I understood nothing. I understood, but not really what it is. But I've already shot a Marathi film. I have already shot a Nepali film where the main protagonist is Nepali. The troll of it was a Nepali language. I've shot that. So I believe that language is not my barrier, and I would love to explore. I just want to go to Honolulu and shoot also. I don't care. Just take me anywhere. Pay me less, but pay me. But just take me. Anywhere in the world you'll call me, I'll go. As long as the script is nice and you're letting me have nice food, if you're taking me abroad, that is, and you're taking me to a good place, I will go. Will go.
So one thing we have to talk about is obviously the great inspirational story about your work and the Anjanu special encouragement at Cannes. Would you just share the experience with us once?
It was it is still one of, I think, my biggest moments of my life right now, and I don't think I'll be able to forget it. It's just being in Cannes and seeing all that madness. Because more than the award, I just loved being there. Because if
Absolutely.
you ever there, it's a whole crazy, bizarre carnival that happens. Okay, and you just have to be there to believe how a festival gets celebrated. The roads are painted with the laurel and everything. Is crazy. And my biggest fan moment was meeting Bruno, because Bruno Del Bonel has been one of my most favorite DOPs, because
Hmm.
I've loved Amelie.
Hmm,
It's
hmm,
one of
hmm,
my
hmm.
most favorite film, and the visual narrative that they did was amazing. I met the director, I met the whole team. It was so much fun, and it was it's also a huge learning graph for me when I met Bruno, because Bruno is just like my uncle from next door. He's older to me, and he doesn't talk too much, and he used to get tired with all the interviews, and after a point he was like, she talks, so you take her interview, leave me. And I was like, where are you going? He's like, I want to have a coffee. And he would just go off. And then when I was talking films with him, I realized that the struggles which he faces are very similar,
Hmm,
just
hmm,
the
hmm, hmm.
valuation of money is different.
Right, right.
But he has the same problems, that they're not giving me enough days. They didn't give me the lens that I'm like, Bruno Del Bonil is telling that he didn't get the lens that he wanted. I'm like, hello, what is this? He's like, oh, they didn't give me the lens that I wanted to now that problem is he's asking for a lens which will always look into the pictures and click, वो picture काट के दीवार पे लगाने जैसा. But then he also didn't get it, and he would be like, I wanted 20 days, they gave me, for example, this is if I wanted 20 days, they gave me 19 and a half. But the point is, I realized that the struggles, no matter what age you are as a technician,
No matter
wherever
where
working,
you are.
where you are, in which juncture of your life you are, it is the same thing. He has problems with his editor, that I took a shot which was so nice, he thought that it was not emotionally viable enough, and he just chopped it off. It took me 3 days to light. I was like, 3 days? I can't even imagine 3 days. Like, it took me 3 days to light up the shot, and my editor, bloody fellow, he chopped it off and threw it off. It was one of my most favorite things. So that is was I was like, oh my god, it happens to every one of us. And
Exactly.
it kind of suddenly it felt very comforting
Hmm, hmm, hmm,
in a
hmm.
way that I used to think that me coming from Kolkata and just starting out in my work, it was something very exclusive to me,
Hmm, hmm.
or the struggles that I'm going through is very exclusive to me. I realized that no, as technicians, as people, it is a journey that you have to have through all your life. Maybe the
Right.
context changes, maybe the scale changes, but the struggles are
Always the
always
same.
is always the same.
So we've come to the end of this very enriching conversation, and this is a question that I have to ask you. Although I know what your answer is going to be, but I still would love the audience to know that, especially in a regional industry like ours, the bonding of the team is very important. Especially people who are working in a very tight schedule with very low budget. Especially, I would say the director and the cinematographer, their bonding has to be very solid. So navigating through your bonding with your directors, how has it enriched you as an artist, and how have there are very few bonds you share in the industry with your friends who are also your colleagues, who are also your directors. How has it made your job easier, maybe, or made both of your jobs easier? And how has it helped the entire creative process of making a film with so many constraints?
First thing, we are not a regional industry.
Okay.
We are Indian cinema in Bengali language.
All
What
right.
is regional and mainstream? There is nothing called mainstream. There is nothing called regional. We are all part of a larger narrative of filmmaking called Indian cinema.
Okay.
And we are the branch which is Bengali film industry. We are not a regional industry. There is no regional industries in Indian cinema. And I want to make this on point. It is not.
Okay.
I hate the term
Regional
regional
industries.
cinema. We
Okay.
are not regional.
Okay.
We are very mainstream. Each of us are mainstream.
Okay.
And coming to your question, there is nothing good about having collaborative director friends, because they call you all the time. Rahul Mukherjee, I hate him. My biggest collaborator till now, the guy I've worked with the most. Okay, everybody thinks we are dating.
Yeah,
It is a
everyone does. Yeah,
trauma. Everybody
absolutely.
thinks that he's having an extramarital affair with me. Okay, and he is calling me all the time at 3. I don't want to look at his face. I don't want to hear his voice. I don't want to be with him. But I have to because I love him also. And also because nobody else gives me work. So this is true. Nobody else gives me work. I am just Rahul's DOP.
Just ask for her dates and you'll see. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Of course. There are a bit of changes in life right now. But yes, no, Rahul is like, for example, Rahul is actually one of the biggest examples I have because he's the director I've worked with the most
Yeah.
till now. And we have started working when both of us were struggling and find our own grounds and stuff like that. And we just connected over the fact that कुछ करते हैं. Let's break some bones out there, bro.
So we have come to the very end, and there's a fantastic question which I think
Still is.
Yeah, there's one last fantastic question, is that if you're asked to shoot with one lens for the rest of your life from now on,
200 block.
200 block, why so?
It is magic. It is sheer poetry. The world looks different.
Great, we have an answer to that.
It is. Yeah, it is simply the world looks different.
200 block. As the credits roll on this great conversation we just had with Modhura Palit, we are left with many stories, about visual storytelling, about collaborating with fellow artists, and about the struggles you have to face and how you need to put your foot down. I think it's a very inspirational story for a lot of us, where we find challenges and we have to, hit a six and hit the ball out of the park. We thank Modhura Palit on behalf of the entire team for sharing some wonderful stories with us, behind the camera stories, which we rarely know of. And here's wishing her all the best with a lot of future projects. And we are looking forward to newer visual narratives from her side. For more interesting stories about what goes on behind the cameras, you need to join us in the next episode. See you there.